Hello, everybody. Welcome to LGBT Alliance US podcast. Today we have a really special guest with us, and I'm looking forward to it. Her name's Bianca. But first, introductions. I'm Carol.
I'm Sylvia.
I'm Marianne.
And we have Bianca. She will not be showing her face for obvious reasons. Everybody knows how much cancellation there is out there, and she's got to make a living, but we're happy she's here to talk to us and give us all the juicy details and tell us about her app. So welcome, Bianca.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
Could you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of why you started the app?
Sure. I started it because I was tired of seeing heterosexual males in our spaces. It was a culture shock because I hadn't been in lesbian spaces online, really, to be quite honest. And then when I did start going in, there was always an understanding between lesbians and bisexuals that if you shared a space together, we never had to hear about male genitals or your issues with your boyfriends or what was going on there. And it was quite the rude awakening to go on specifically Reddit and see a post talking about how much they enjoyed performing on male genitals. And I thought, where am I? This is not, I was very confused by the whole thing. And then of course I read the blurb on top and it said trans women. And I thought, okay, so this is a group that's going to speak about heterosexual sex. And I was very uncomfortable with that. And then I ended up finding my way over to True Lesbians, which is now gone, unfortunately. And I started to get just a real slap in the face about what was going on in our community. The reason I started looking for lesbian groups to begin with is I had actually gone on a date and got catfished by a trans woman who then proceeded to call me all sorts of names when I said I wasn't interested, in a very polite way. I had to have the bartenders of the establishment help me out. Thankfully, it was a lesbian bar. It was very uncomfortable and it didn't feel safe for me. So I started trying to figure out what was going on, like what's happening here. And I think that if more lesbians knew what was really happening, because so many of us, in our 30s and such, have already met our partners and we don't go on dates and we don't see what's happening. And they don't know that our spaces have been overrun by heterosexuality and that we're just expected to take it, and not only take it, but participate in it and work on our own aversions to satisfy heterosexual norms within our community. I think they would be irate as I am. And then True Lesbians was the only place that I found. And I thought, okay, this may not be here forever, because they had been taking down certain groups and posts, and I thought this didn't feel like a safe space for lesbians. And I had gone on Twitter and someone said, where are the lesbians of means? Where are the lesbians that can do something and funding it for us? And I knew that they were talking to me. So I contacted a friend, a business partner, and I said, listen, I want to do this. And he, a gay man, said, I think it's really an important thing to do. And I went about making the app and designing it and trying to put as much character into it and taking from our history with the monocle and just trying to make a safe space for us that would outlive me and fund itself, so that there was no exterior funding and nobody would ever have to quiet their own voices or not say certain things because we might get our funding pulled, because it's funded by the women within the group.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, so yeah, I did want to ask about the Club Monocle name though, because I have to admit it put me off a little bit.
Really?
The name initially, for some reason, just because it seemed really like I'd never heard of anything like that, and I was just like, what is this about?
Okay. Well, Club Monocle, back in the, it goes back as far as the 1800s, actually. Lesbians did not know how to find each other in society. There were no lesbian bars. There was obviously no apps, no social media, and they didn't know how to find each other. So what they did was women in public would wear a monocle to signal to each other that they were same-sex attracted. For gay men, it was a green carnation. So what they would do is they would wear the monocles in public, and you can see all these fantastic old photographs from the 20s and the 30s and so on, of these lesbians proudly wearing their monocle and showing it to the camera, which could have gotten them killed or arrested in those days.
Wow.
You can also find old paintings, which I have a beautiful collection of, old paintings of women just displaying their monocles to show that they were lesbians. And that's how that's how lesbians found each other in wider society when we were under attack and nobody allowed us to be together. And it felt very relevant today to say, okay, well, maybe that monocle needs to be a beacon for lesbians again. So that's why I called it Club Monocle, to take from our history of how we used to signal to each other that we were same-sex attracted exclusively.
For anyone who's watching that doesn't know what Club Monocle is, could you just kind of give a brief description of what the app is and the purpose of it?
Well, it's a full service lesbian app. It's basically, I like to describe it as sort of an Instagram and Reddit smash up with a dating section. You have your own profile. You can put your own photos in there and share your life as you like. You can be private or not. Then there's a discussion center, which I called the tree house, because I've always loved that old lesbian saying, shaking the lesbian tree for wisdom. So I called it the tree house, where you can write posts for everybody to comment on. You can give awards. You can like and dislike whatever you'd like across that whole platform area. You also have because I know that some women are very scared, like myself, of losing everything they've worked for by being gender critical. So you also have a private alias little portion of the app where you can post anonymously through this one account, and nobody will be able to direct it to the account where you may be showing your face or you may be sharing your life. And then, of course, you have the dating section, which is lesbian for lesbian-only dating. And it is just a simple dating section where you match photos, you swipe left, you swipe right, and then you have chat in there as well. So it's full scale. It's dating, it's conversation, it's your own profile. It's got everything. Every little bit is in there.
Are there any new features or anything that are in the works, or are you pretty content with the current thing?
No, actually, I've had a lot of people that when I first designed the app, there was a portion that was supposed to be the confessional, which was going to be more sex positive for lesbians. But it hasn't been built because I had some trouble with Apple approving it. And I got really scared because I was really surprised they were letting the app go through. And then when they started to question the confessional, I started to get scared. So I pulled back on that, but I'd had a lot of people wanting, recommendations on vibrators and stuff like that, or be able to talk about sex, and they don't want to upset anyone in the general treehouse area. So that is on the list. I have had requests for a laptop version, a computer version, where they can go on and not be on their phone. That's also there. I've been asked to do a live chat. And the only thing we've added since we started was the dating section, which was not done when we started. But everything else, other than upgrades, just to make it prettier across and add some flash, we've just done little things like that. But there's a long list. And obviously at some point, if the app is successful and we get enough people in and it's able to pay for itself, I would love, since it's funded by the community, for all the community to be able to have a portion of the app where they could vote for what they want to prioritize in adding to the app. So it's not just me trying to figure out what the community wants, but you actually telling me, okay, we want this done next. And then obviously, since you're paying for it, obviously that's what we're going to do, is what you want.
That's a really cool idea. I like that idea.
Mm-hmm.
So as it stands right now, is it free, or how does that work?
We have 6 months free.
Okay.
So that someone can get fully engrossed in the community and figure out if it's somewhere they want to be. It is $50 a year for that, or it can be $5 a month. And that is simply, as a private club, we had to do first off, we had to do a monthly, which I didn't care for, but we had to. Just this protects me from being sued for discrimination purposes. So it is free for 6 months, but then like it has that payment, but the money does not go to me. It goes into a well that gets paid, that pays off the app every month, because every month we add something, we take something away, because Apple is always giving us packets telling us we have to update for this that they're doing or updating for that. So it would pay for the app. Anything that goes over that would be for upgrades on the app that you all want or not. And if it continues to be successful, at some point we would love to have events. We'd love to be able to do in-person events for the lesbians in the community, maybe rent out a bar, maybe rent out a club, a roller rink, or even just a bar and have some speed dating or something that would be exclusively for Monocle members.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so I can see where you're going with that. You really do, you want it to be a member to join, member owned kind of thing, which,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. In my will, it is very specific. I had to make a will, obviously, very specific that it continues on without me. No one will ever be able to buy it or sell it. Obviously, someone else would be the president, which is what I'm legally named at this point, is the president of it. And then someone else would be put in place, which I'm assuming would be voted on. And then you all would continue to run this space as you see fit by a vote from the members.
How do you safeguard? Like, can you talk a little bit about the verification process? And I mean, I remember when I first joined, I think I had to send in a video of me saying like a specific phrase, and I got a little nervous because I think, you know, I said the word "yeah" instead of the word "you," like, you know, and I was like, well, oh, that's gonna not let me in, but it still works. So can you talk about the verification process a little bit?
Well, yeah, absolutely. When you go into the app, you have to record a live video of yourself saying a lyric or a phrase that we give you. Now, we'll give you a set. Of course, you can refresh it and it will change to any lyric, the next lyric coming up or whatever, but it has to be random for us. Just because we don't want someone to be able to record somebody doing, we've actually had people recording others saying something and then putting that phone right up against their phone and trying to use that recording to get in. We've had people trying to use a photo on front of their face.
You say people, do you mean men?
Yes, I mean men.
Okay.
Yes. And we've seen across different social media platforms where women have tested us. They've said, I've tested them with my brother-in-law, or I tested them with so-and-so, and they didn't let me in. So what we do is we get that video, it's taken live, and a group of lesbians look them over. And if someone thinks something is off with that video, then it goes to the next one. You get 2 chances. If the next person says there's something off, you automatically get declined. There is no AI. I tried to find an AI just because I thought it would be so much easier and it would streamline the process, but every single one failed my tests. Every single one I was able to get a guy through, or a very effeminate man, or, you know, a gay man, or it failed on every single level. So the only way that I could do it and be comfortable with it was by having lesbian women actually be the ones to verify the videos, and that's how you get in.
It's very interesting. See, I thought, I didn't know how it worked really, but I thought maybe it was a combination of AI and in-person stuff. You know, maybe AI initially does a thing and then someone has to look it over to give it the final okay.
No, initially it is us. And then what we do is we run it through software to make sure that the audio and the video that was given to us was taken live, that there isn't anything strange in the recording or the sound. And we've only ever had that kicked back once. And then if everything's fine through the audio and video, then it just goes through into the servers, which is then saved in case someone ever accuses someone of being a catfish. Then we can look at their photos and we can look at their entrance video and say, no, that's the right person. And that's all that takes place from that point. But we've only ever had the video come back not right. And she was a lesbian and she was happy to do a live with us and talk to us in person to get through, but there was just, her phone was very old, and so the audio on it wasn't great, so we only had it kicked back once. But there is a 2-person process. There's a person process and then an AI process, but the person is first.
Okay. When I initially went to do the video and join, I was super nervous because I'm detransitioned. And I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know if that's gonna like make a difference. And I know I'm not the only like detransitioned lesbian out
Yeah,
there to be petrified to try to join women only spaces because we're
right.
like, oh God, we don't want to get.
Right. And
So
we do look for that. We do look for detransitioned individuals to say, listen, because we also allow non-binary in. So we're used to seeing androgynous women or women that may have detransitioned, and we're very careful about that as well. We want to make sure that we don't make it an uncomfortable situation. Like I said, we can have more than one person look at a video, but I have to say, most of the time, we're very easily able to tell that someone has detransitioned and that someone is a woman. I don't want to be mean to anyone that has transitioned to say you're not passing, but it just I don't want to be mean like that, but I've just got to say it's been really obvious when someone has detransitioned to
yeah,
us anyways.
yeah, I mean, if if you've met a few and some, then it becomes
Mhm.
easier to see. It's not a big deal. So yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And like I said, we're all lesbians and we're all in the community. And so we know what we're looking for. And I think only one D-trans person had ever been rejected. And she was very, very feminine, but had a very masculine voice.
Mm,
And she would have passed had her voice not been so, so deep. And
yeah,
we were just kind of like, oh, that voice is so deep. But again, she was really nice and understood completely and said, listen, I'm happy to show you whatever I need to show you to get in. And we let her in and she's been great. So yeah, we pretty much know what we're, and like I said, this is the whole thing about having a human actually looking at it and not AI.
true, very true.
Mm.
So,
What?
oh, sorry. I was just gonna ask if I don't know if you have any way of having an assessment of this, but of the people who have used your app and are using your
Mhm.
app, do you think they came in with the app with a similar motivation you had when you developed the app? Namely, sort of a disillusionment with the way that lesbian dating has become.
Yes, I do feel like a lot of lesbians are looking for a space to belong, but I don't think that's anything new. When we're such a marginalized small group, doesn't everybody look for their tribe? And to see the places that we had set aside for us being taken over by this new ideology and this, I hate to say it, but very conversion therapy like way of thinking. um, I think that they have gone into the space wanting it to be their sort of lesbian nirvana. Um, and I know that there have also been people that have contacted me and said, the place is just too gender critical. And I'm going to say to you what I've said to them, which is, listen, if you want to see a change in the space, because you're welcome, even if you're not gender critical, if all you have to be is a lesbian. But if you have a problem with the post that you're seeing, then you need to be that change. You need to make a post that has nothing to do with gender critical. Make a space for yourself. This place is not going to build itself. And I find that a lot of the criticism that we've gotten is this space isn't all it's chopped up to be. There's not a lot of content. There's not a lot of people posting. But listen, all I've done is supply the hardware. That's all I've done. I've given you the space, and now it's up to all of us to build it together. So I do think people are looking for that space, but I don't think people are willing to build this space because it does take time and it does take work. And I think people wanted an already built space as opposed to working towards building this space together that is supposed to be all of ours.
Interesting to hear that there are some people who are not gender critical who are interested in the project. Because
Isn't that strange?
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
is, but at the same time, it might not be, in the sense that I think there's sort of this just, I almost want to call it an ecosystem of, at least for me, when I was looking at lesbian dating apps, there were, many different things that people were suggesting that aren't really strictly speaking lesbian, like her. And I could easily see, just by word of mouth, someone just throwing out, Club Monocle as a name without maybe more context. So I could see some people joining for that reason. And also like what you were saying about how it's also not just meant to be a dating app, but also meant to have this
Mhm.
social forum function.
Right.
Kind of like, I don't mean like Reddit maybe or something. I don't know, like,
Mhm.
or just anything like that.
Mhm.
And so I'm not aware of of an alternative to that. I don't think, you know, like her is really, really doing anything like that. So I could see some
Mhm.
people simply joining for that reason too.
Yeah, but don't you feel, and maybe I shouldn't even be saying this, but hey, controversy sells. So don't you feel that if you are a lesbian and you're saying, listen, I want a lesbian space that only has lesbians, and I'm not comfortable with people who identify as lesbian, male or female, that are not lesbian. Don't you feel in a sense that's a little bit gender critical?
It's labeled that. I mean, I think it's common sense, but yeah, it's labeled
Right.
that.
Right. So I think if you're searching for a space that is devoid of these other groups, then on some level, maybe this is hope, I don't know, but on some minuscule level, that is a bit of gender critical ideology, just a touch.
I think people, lesbians, homosexual women, homosexual
Hmm.
human females,
Hmm.
crave that community because it is so rare to
Right.
find and to have. And so even if you maybe don't identify as being a homosexual woman, you
Hmm.
still are going to crave that community
Sure.
if you are a homosexual woman, but you don't necessarily, maybe you
Right.
identify as a non-binary or something is what I'm saying. You still are going to
Right.
want to have and experience that lesbian community because it does feed your soul, I find.
It does. Absolutely. There is a bond that we have that you see in other marginalized communities. You see it in the African American community. You see it. I'm also a woman of color. I'm Latina. So I see it when I bond with my own people, when we hear our music in our language. I mean, sometimes even just going to the store and finding a Mexican Coke. I was just like, you know. So and yeah, we do. We search for each other, and maybe they don't see it as gender critical, but I mean, there is some level of that in saying that one of these is not like the other.
Yeah.
To quote Sesame Street.
Come on, people, let's take it all the way back to the beginning and start again.
I mean, I think too, sometimes it could be sort of a slow process. Like I know just speaking from my own experience, I sort of started with the going to the lesbian dating apps and being like
Mm,
not happy with the situation, but I was
right.
kind of a little afraid of putting two and two together. Like I didn't really want to get involved into the more social political aspect of it. And
Right.
it took me a really long time and it was a gradual process of sort of moving towards a more gender critical position, if you will. So
Mm,
I'm curious how some of the people who say they use it for non-gender critical reasons.
mhm.
I'm actually just generally curious to hear from them about what what's their motivation or whatever.
Yeah, they just I think they just want, like was already said, they want a home, a place with their sisters, for lack of a better way of putting it. Um and what they wanted is just a real lesbian space, like I think some of them had before this all happened and it crept into our spaces everywhere else. Um, but I can totally agree with you on that. It was not a fast peaking for me. It was a very slow, gradual one because I did grow up with trans people in my life. I was raised by two gay men, well, five gay men actually, all drag queens. And so, because I had been disowned by my family at 14 for being a lesbian, and these are the people that took me in. And so I grew up with trans people in my life, and I protested the military ban, and I did all kinds of I mean, and so it was very difficult for me when they turned their backs on me. And basically called me a sexual racist, which I just thought was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And so I did peak slowly. And then I wrote a post on Twitter. I did a whole thread on Twitter that kind of went mini viral. You could still find it online, actually. And it kind of went a little bit viral. And I got so much hate. I got so many people attacking me. And I think what these people don't understand is that when you come at someone with so much hate, it's that much easier for them to peak. It's that much easier for them to push back, because they see that you're a race, that you're the one that's homophobic. You're the one that has an issue with me and my life. And it's not me that's having the issue, it's you. And it's very easy to turn away when all you're being met with is a wall of hate. So it was a slow peaking for me as well.
What I get this a lot from friends, or I should say, ex-friends, but people who used to be my friends and then like you turn their backs on me for being a homosexual or for wanting a female-only space. So what have you had this issue come up where maybe you're talking to someone about this app that you've created and they tell you that it is discriminatory, that it is, bigotry and exclusionary? I mean, it is exclusionary by definition, but, I'm curious, how would you respond to that, to someone saying you've created a discriminatory, bigoted app? Not that I believe that's what it is at all.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. No problem. I actually, as far as my lesbian friends, I was the last one to peak. And I think it was because of my upbringing. But when I did finally peak and I kind of started to talk to friends about it, because you have to understand, I was having these protests march. I was going and doing these protests, and I was like trying to get my friends to go with me and everything. And as the weeks passed and the months passed, the car was less full. And I didn't know what was happening at the time. And then when I finally told my friends what I was doing, the lesbians anyways, they were just like, oh, it's about time you finally peaked. And I was just like, what? I was like, wait, why didn't you say anything? They're like, listen, we know about how you were raised. We weren't about to do that to you. We weren't going to like say it's us against you, because we love you and it's fine. But we're really glad you peaked, basically. So that was that. However, I did have a couple of gay friends who had a harder time with it. And I had this conversation with them. And these are older gentlemen who have been married for, I think, 28 years now. And, I told them what was happening. And one of them had totally drank the Kool-Aid and, trans women are women and this and all that. And I said, okay, but here's the problem with that. They're not. And I'm sorry if that's offensive to anyone. And when you say that, you're basically saying lesbians are with them because of our attractions. And this is where it gets a really sticky situation. I put it up to them. I said, are you willing to date a trans man and learn to navigate a vagina? And they were like, no. And I said, well, why would you expect me to do the same? I mean, that's what they're saying. That's what they've turned on us. They've turned on us totally and completely. And I showed them, some places on the internet that shows different captions of, I can't think of the name right now, but different screen grabs of tweets and stuff that have been done, basically calling out mostly lesbians. And they started to kind of understand. Now, I'm not going to say that they are gender critical or anything, but they understand why I did it. And I can't say I've had lost any friends. I do have one friend, and she and I just don't talk about it. We've agreed not to talk about it, and our friendship has continued.
As you were making the app and putting it into use, are there certain aspects of this process that have really surprised you, either for better or for worse?
Well, I had the person that was helping me with it stole from me. So there was that. That was a surprise. I lost that friend in the process, unfortunately. And as far as building it, I was not aware, and this is for advice for anyone who wants to make an app of their own or whatever, hit me up, because I got lots of advice. I thought you could just tell people, okay, I kind of want this, I kind of want that, and I want a little bit of this, and then they would go. You know what I mean? And they don't. You have to write a very detailed pitch for the people building your app. For instance, they didn't allow, when I first saw the app and we were testing it, they didn't allow for you to respond to people's comments. There was no reply because it wasn't in the pitch. I mean, just the smallest thing that you would think is just common knowledge, they need it written in there. But the biggest surprise was actually after the app was done. I had been seeing lesbians across every social media program, just everywhere I've ever been, lesbians saying, where's our space? Who's going to give us our space? Where are we going to find a space? So how can we get our own space? And here I had this space and nobody wanted to contribute to building it.
You know,
and as a matter of fact, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that that's something that is very difficult in this work. And I think it's something that we all here, volunteers at LGBT Alliance US, also feel frustrated with, is people want something totally built and handed to them. And you're like, guys, we aren't Twitter. We aren't like, we're not, this is all really grassroots. Like, this is what grassroots means. It means community building. It's like, there is nothing here. We have to build it again. And I know that's frustrating because, you know, I'm in my early 40s. Stuff was already built when I came out. It was there, you know?
Right.
So I understand it's really hard for us, especially, I think, especially in this kind of culture where we have everything right away and laid out to us in big platforms where we can talk to people all day long. It's really hard to go back to the basics. And I think that's what we have to do, but it's difficult for people.
It is really hard. And I've had a lot of criticism levied at me across lesbian groups that it's dead. And I agree, it absolutely is. And I wish I knew how to fix that, but I can't do it alone. And it's one of those situations where, because we don't have enough paying members on Club Monocle, I'm still paying the monthly on it. I paid for the app, I'm still paying the monthly. I don't expect to get paid back at all. But at some point it has to become autonomous. At some point it has to pay for itself. And I can't keep people in a space where they're not contributing. And it's really difficult because, like I said, I saw everyone asking for this space, and I truly, and I was told this would not happen. The guy that stole from me, he told me lesbians are notorious for being cheap and they're not going to want to pay for it. And I said, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried because if they think they're getting their money's worth, and it's not just going to some fat cat at the top of the heap, like getting all their money, and it's actually going towards their own community, I think they will. And he went and he said, nobody's gonna, I'm telling you, this is just a waste of money. He kept telling me. And I said, I really believed in this community. And I thought the second we opened the doors, that would be it. Once you knew about it, lesbians would come in, they'd filter, they'd be like, oh, finally a space of our own. We don't have to worry about anything. And that just didn't happen. It just didn't happen at all.
From my own perspective, what happened with, I was reluctant because I didn't trust it. I was so burned so many times, and it asked for video, and I was just like, I don't know who this is. Where did this come from? Like, it was one of those things where I was just really distrusting. And I think I had to do like a lot of asking other women. Like, I had to get pretty good verification through the lesbian grapevine from women I trusted to try to join. So that's kind of, I think, another hindrance that's happening is just the distrusting of everything because we've just been completely burned.
Yeah. And I have gotten that as well. I have been told that. And as a result, you know, we had some people at the beginning. I've had several women take care of some Zoom get-togethers on Monocle. And I went in there and I showed my face to let people know, hey, this is me. This is my face. I am a woman. I'm not here to take anything from you. And I understand that that is a really difficult part to get over. And also the whole, can we just touch on, because people have also said that they're worried that I'm going to steal their data or something. That's impossible to do. I'm on Apple, and our software goes through Apple. You have to hack Apple to get to your stuff. That we don't have like our own private little website where we take everything in. This is all Apple. That's why you download from Apple. You get everything from Apple or Android. I'm sorry, we're on both Apple and Android. So you would literally have to hack them in order for anyone to be able to take any of your information. And let me tell you, when they do not give us much. They don't give us much in any way, shape, or form to protect you. So I would just like to say that, because I know people were scared about that too.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, you have to, there is just some risk online. There just is. And you have to be like, okay with that and take your own precautions.
But in our terms and conditions, it does say that we may share certain information with third-party vendors or whatever. And I just want to say the reason why that's written in there is because when I spoke to my attorneys about this, they had me sitting at the table saying, okay, what do you want for this? Writing notes, I mean, this was a very involved process. Luckily, I have a great law firm behind me, but the sharing, if we ever were to do events, and we could get sponsors like drinking or whatever, like vodka or whatever, if we could get sponsors to pay for the event, that means they could be free for the members of Club Monocle. You wouldn't even have to buy a ticket. You just got to be a member of Monocle, and our sponsors pay for everything. But they're not going to do that without knowing what our demographics are. And that is the only sharing that would be done. So whenever someone looks at our terms and conditions, which are very long, I want people to understand that's the only sharing that would ever take place. We're not selling anyone's data. You have my word on that, which you could sue me if I ever did. I'm not giving anything away. I'm not leaving you open to, I'm certainly not giving you your information to testosterone companies. Lots of shade there. And so that's the only sharing that we would ever do, is if we were to get sponsors for events. That's it. That's when you're completely clear of anything else, because it, like I said, this is not a money-making venture for me at all.
As a young lesbian, I am so grateful that you've created this app. I also went to a women's festival for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and I can appreciate how your app is kind of the first step towards getting to a physical piece of land that's women only. And I just love the idea that this app is going to be the key to keeping lesbian community alive. And I love the idea of having events that are sponsored, and I want to get a monocle now to just like you know, or like you know, women are always asking me, how do you find out about women only events? And I'm like, well, you kind of have to know someone. And if there was an app like Club Monocle, thank goodness there is, where we can go, and then I can just be like, here's all the locations, here's all the, you know, and just trust that it's safe there. And you know, I'm sure that there will be more bumps in the road on your end, you know, as it gets bigger and bigger. And I guess if there's anything that you wish, besides more involvement and more people, you know, paying that very reasonable amount, might I say, like that's for what you're getting, I think $5 a month or $50 for the year is incredibly cheap. So I appreciate that, very affordable. Besides the just interacting with the app, is there anything on the technical side that like you would want help with or volunteers for? I know you talked about how you have the dual vetting, which I thought it was just you, and I was like, this poor woman is just getting hundreds of videos. But like, you know, is there a way for people to get involved to assist you in any way?
Yeah, we do. We don't have anything now. Right now, everything is volunteer. I have friends that have contacted me. I have another friend who's done, you know, a lot of the logos and the advertisings for us. It's really, none of us are getting any of the money from Club Monocle. And that is what I really want to make really clear, that this is not a money-making venture. This has always been about the community feeding and taking care of itself long past my life. And I'm only 37, so I hope to be here a while longer. So that's what's important to me. But as it grows, yeah, we're probably going to need help. I've had people saying that we should have admin or mod type of tools on the inside the app so that people can monitor it. And I've spoken to my app guy, and he said it's going to have to go with the desktop version because it's going to be built into a desktop version. So we're definitely at some point going to need the assistance and the volunteers. And obviously when we do events and stuff like that, if that happens, knock on wood, let's hope that it does work out, then obviously it will be a volunteer basis, and it will be members of Monocle that will be working it, because the less money that we spend on hiring people, the more money we can spend on getting events to people, on the app itself, on building the community, advertising the community. Also, there are other countries. I did have one lesbian contact me and tell me that $5 a month is too much in Africa. And there's a lot of lesbians in Africa that would love to be a part of the app. So obviously we're going to have to figure that out with the legal team. To say certain countries, maybe it won't be $5 a month, I don't know. But there's a lot that's going to be going on, and a lot that, you know, people assisting with the Zooms. And we have someone that's working that does Gentleman Jack watch parties, and I'm sure she would like some breaks on that. She also does the lesbian reading. You know, I don't know what book they're on right now, but she does they talk about books that they have a book that they read that's always lesbian centric. And so, yeah, it's becoming that community. People are starting to take ownership of it, but they can't do it on their own. So, yeah, we're definitely going to need lots of volunteers to come on and help out build this community, because that's really the number one, is making sure there's always new posts, and making sure that they're engaged, and making sure that you're building this community, this friendship, this sisterhood with each other. I think that's what's the most important at this point.
I was going to say that I think, hell, just joining and paying your $50, you can shut up then, you know, like you've done something.
It's true.
You know,
That's
I mean, that's part of building the community. And
Yeah.
I also think the idea of having it be a private club is the best option to go, because I think as private clubs, we would have more right to say we exclude.
Exactly.
You know,
and that's what my lawyers were going for.
Yeah. And maybe that hasn't been made very clear to women, that that's kind of the reason we're doing this. I mean, I think maybe some of it needs to, I mean, maybe I've missed it, but maybe something that is written and explained to women who come into this app, why the app runs the way it does. You know, that way they're not just like, why do I got to pay $50? It's like, no, there's reasons you're doing this, right? I mean, not only are you supporting it, but we got to make clubs, folks, because that's how we get around some of these things.
Well, and we were modeled after the original Le Monocle in Paris, which I did skip over that. There was a club in the 1920s called Le Monocle, the very first ever lesbian club that was ever built. And it was in Paris, which is still stand. I have this dream. Can I just say, I'd love for us to do an event at the original Monocle, because it's still there with the monocle doorway, the round monocle doorway anyways. So that was also a part of it, that we wanted it to feel like a club inside, which is why you can see a martini every now and then with the icons.
It does.
I really went into details.
I feel velvet, like there's velvet ropes when I go into the app. Like it really does feel like an intimate. Yeah, I love the aesthetic of the app, let me just say.
Thank you.
Okay, but
thank you.
Can I throw some criticism now?
Yes.
So I personally found it really hard to navigate. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I'm not sure what this means from this. Can I post here, and where is that? Like, it was just a little bit confusing. So maybe more like kind of, maybe when you first start, or even you can go through a tutorial period where it kind of shows you like, you know, oh, this is what this does. If you want to post something like this, here's where you do that.
Okay. That
might be good for the lay woman who doesn't necessarily.
You can say older, it's okay. I'm not great on these.
Honestly, I think it would be really helpful, because a lot of people don't know the dating section is there.
Well, I'm married, so I avoid that.
Well, yeah. That's a good thing. Don't go in there.
Okay.
But yeah, I think a lot of people don't know the dating section is on there. And there have been times where people are like, well, you know, where's the dating section that like this? Where's lesbian for lesbian day? I'm like, behind the Cupid's bow on your top left. And they're like, oh, okay. So I think that maybe some sort of tutorial that said, okay, this is here, but, and this is where dating is, because dating is behind an icon in a whole different section. Whereas the rest is laid out at the bar, but not below you, you just tap those icons at the bottom to navigate that part. But you have to go into an icon in a totally separate, because it was too big to put on the first bar. We had to open an entire section up of the app to allow people into the dating. And I think that that is where people get lost. And I think if people knew that the dating was there, because I mean, people pay $15. The cheapest I saw was $15 a month for dating. And it's $5 or $50 a year. And you have dating plus everything else. And
there's no men.
There's zero men. Zero.
Is there the ability to put your location in there?
Mm-hmm.
You can. Okay.
Yeah. You can
maybe
put
I just
anything you want in there. You can put even if you are a lesbian that's not willing to go long distance, you can set your miles and your perimeters on where you want to look. If you are willing to, or let's say you're moving to Europe, you can put Europe and kind of see what's in your future. It's got everything. You can even put your sign in there to let people know what's going on with that, because I know that in the lesbian community there's a lot of people that love astrology. I'm a scientist, so I'm not into astrology, but I know a lot of lesbians are, so I put it in there. And then there's a questionnaire behind that Cupid's bow. You have to fill out a questionnaire so that we can prioritize your photos.
Okay.
There's something for everyone. I don't know if we've created these categories, but the Reddit lesbians, a lot of them will post on like the Reddit like page, and then the Instagram lesbians will just do a bunch of pictures and stories, and Snapchat lesbians who just do the 24-hour, it's
Right.
there's a lot of options, and it's like you don't have to go to separate places. You can just go to this one Club Monocle and post however you like, and you're going to find the people who are like you and communicate with them. So it's a really great thing that you've started. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely, obviously it's not, I was hoping that we could hit every demographic of lesbian. Like I said, every lesbian is welcomed. You do not have to be gender critical. You just have to be female and exclusively female attracted. What a lesbian is. You can be non-binary. You can be, I don't care about that. It's just about being a lesbian, and us coming together in a world that has never really liked us, and the ones that do like us fetishize us. And it's supposed to be a place free of judgment for ourselves, where we don't have to deal with anybody. I follow a couple of people who, some lesbians that had children, are like, oh, that poor child. You'll never have to deal with that at Monocle. You will never have to deal with someone saying something homophobic like that at Monocle. It's just really supposed to be ours, and that's it. And we're supposed to build it together, and we're supposed to fund it together. I pay my $50 a month. I don't even get free in there. I even pay. It's just, I really hope that the community embraces it, because this is what I did it for us. And like I said, I don't plan on getting a single dime back, not one. And it would be great if we could get big enough that we could maybe buy an island and have a little Isle of Lesbos to ourselves. That would be like the ultimate dream.
I mean, dream big, right? Just go big, see where you end up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Lesbos wasn't built in a day, I think.
Yeah.
It's
a saying now.
Yeah.
We're gonna be closing it down pretty soon. But I wanted to say one more thing. I wanted to say that I feel like on the site too, it is very open to conversation. There isn't shutting down of conversation. We can have like disagreements and even arguments and agree to disagree. And I appreciate that. Like, To me, it seems there's no censorship.
No, there isn't. I mean, if you want to consider someone may not like what you have to say and downvote you, but that's it. That's pretty much it. I think we're all used to that in most other places when we speak our minds anyhow. But even that doesn't really happen. And I've had women go on there and be critical of me, and you don't get kicked out. You're perfectly in your right if you want to criticize me. And I told you all, I said, anything is on the table. You can criticize me, you can criticize the app. I don't care. Let's just talk about it. And you can do the same in Monocle. I have zero interest in silencing women's voices. Our voices are silenced everywhere else in the world. We are not going to be silenced in our own space. And so for that reason, I let the conversations happen.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you.
And this is what it's about, right? It's about building community, and that's what we're trying to do at LGBT Alliance. That's what we want to kind of bring up, the other voices of people who also are trying to build community, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation for me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'll see you in the Club
Thank you.
Monocle